Welcome to Global Exploration, where we bring the traveling to you. Sit back and relax as we dive into 10 of Australia's best traveling destinations. The world that we live in is filled with amazing places, from an official bullion mint to the largest tropical rainforest. Join us as we reveal the top 10 travel spots in Australia. Starting with number 1. The Old Melbourne Jail, Melbourne, Victoria. Formerly a prison, the Old Melbourne Jail is now a museum. It is located near the former City Police Watch House and City Court structures and comprises of a bluestone building and courtyard. It was initially built in 1839, and it served as a prison, where some of Australia's most renowned criminals were detained and sentenced to death, from 1845 to 1924. Even though it was briefly used during World War II, it officially stopped being used as a prison in 1924. Parts of the jail were then turned into the RMIT University, while the remaining portions were turned into a museum. The three-story museum features information and artifacts about the inmates and employees, as well as death masks from offenders who were put to death. As of 2010, the jail was acknowledged as Victoria's oldest surviving criminal establishment, attracting roughly 140,000 tourists per year. The cells have been filled with information about individual convicts, which serves to illustrate Melbourne's history. It also features different artifacts, such as death masks, an iron mask and a pair of leather gloves, along with Ned Kelly's death mask, revolver, and a replica suit of his armor on display. The pencil used by Colin Ross, who wrote a letter protesting his innocence, could also be seen at the jail. Operators run multiple features that include an interactive performance, in which visitors are handled as convicts, as well as portraying prolific and merciless hangmen. Number 2. Brisbane Botanic Gardens, Brisbane. Brisbane Botanic Gardens are Brisbane's most mature gardens, with many rare and exotic botanic species. The gardens have a specific collection of cycads, palms, figs, and bamboo. It was built in 1825 as a farm for the Moreton Bay Correctional Facility. Convicts originally cultivated the gardens with crops to supply the prison with food. When Walter Hill was named curator of the Botanic Reserve, he began an active planting and experimental campaign. Due to Hill's experiments, some of the older trees planted in the gardens were the first of their species to be planted in Australia. Plants with possible commercial value were tested in the gardens, first to see if they were useful, then to determine what they needed for growth and if a profit could be made. Hill also helped the Queensland Acclimatisation Society, and the Botanic Gardens served as a propagation and distribution centre for Society's imports. The gardens span a total of 49 acres and are divided into 3 different sections. Shade trees create paths and forests throughout the gardens. A cottage from the early 1900s with arts and crafts decorative elements is at the southern end on Residence Hill. This structure is surrounded by trees and plants, some of which are survivors of plantings made in the late 1850s and early 1860s. The Walter Hill Fountain is located to the north side of Residence Hill, which is supported by a 3-tiered stepped octagonal base. To the south side is a grassed amphitheater that faces a stage just beside the river. Number 3. The Perth Mint, Perth. The Perth Mint, established 2 years before Australia's federation in 1901, is the country's official bullion mint. Visit the traditional gold pour in the mint's original 1899 melting house, as well as the Guinness World Record-holding, heaviest coin weighing 14 pounds of pure gold, worth more than $70 million. You can handle more than $700,000 in gold bullion and observe metal coins being made. You may even design your own medallion and discover the value of your body weight in gold, as well as acquire one-of-a-kind Western Australian gem such as Argyle pink diamonds and South Sea pearls. The Perth Mint was the third and final of 3 Australian colonial branches established to refine gold from gold rushes and mint sovereigns and half-sovereigns for the British Empire. Initially, the mint fulfilled 2 functions: minting coins for circulation and purchasing the great bulk of gold mined in Western Australia. In 1957, the Perth Mint earned arguably the purest of all gold, when it produced a 400-gram proof plate. The Mint officially launched a 90,000-square-foot state-of-the-art manufacturing facility next to its historic limestone structure. Number 4. The Australian War Memorial, Canberra. The Australian War Memorial is Australia's national memorial, commemorating members of its armed services along with supporting organizations who have died or were involved in conflicts involving the Commonwealth of Australia. The memorial, first opened in 1941, features a large national military museum. The Australian War Records section was established to ensure the preservation of records relevant to the war at the time. Records and artifacts were initially displayed in Melbourne, then in Canberra. The memorial was originally intended to be a museum memorial dedicated only to commemorating Australian involvement in World War I. However, as it became evident that a second war of comparable size would break out, it was decided to make the building a place of memorial for all Australian involvement in war. It was officially opened on November 11, 1941, following a Remembrance Day service. The critical point in the layout where the memorial is located was deliberately chosen to symbolize its national significance. The building is divided into three sections: the commemorative area or shrine, the galleries where the museum is, and the research center where the records are. Number 5. The Daintree Rainforest, Queensland. The Daintree Rainforest is part of Australia's biggest contiguous tract of tropical rainforest, known as the Wet Tropics of Queensland. The region, along with a few other rainforest locations on Australia's east coast, contains some of the world's oldest extant rainforest populations. These ancient, self-sustaining forests are approximately 10 million years older than the Amazon of South America, and have seen dinosaurs, ice ages, and early people who have come and gone. It is a remnant of what was once a massive forest that covered the entire Australian continent. It is a remarkable survivor of 120 million years of changed climatic circumstances caused by continental drift, which has reduced the size of the original forest to a few restricted areas. The Daintree region combines tropical rainforests, white sandy beaches, and offshore fringing reefs. Because of the distance between attractions, driving is the most convenient way to get between them. There are many walking paths and several accommodation alternatives within the rainforest. The top of Mount Peter Botte offers broad views of untouched woodland, and the skyline is dominated by one of Queensland's tallest mountains. The forest includes vital habitats for the protection of biological diversity. Approximately 430 bird species reside within the trees, as are primitive flowering plants and a handful of rare and endangered species including the southern cassowary and Bennett's tree kangaroo. Number 6. Mawson's Hut Replica Museum, Hobart. Mawson's Hut Replica is a true-to-life museum that recreates the historic huts used by the Australian Antarctic expedition crew of 18 men who lived on Cape Denison, Commonwealth Bay. These men made themselves at home in this challenging environment, braving the harsh winds in the eastern part of the Australian Antarctic Territory. This was a monumental accomplishment for a country that had only been in existence for a little more than a decade. When Dr. Douglas Mawson made it his goal and mission to lead this expedition, little was known about this uncharted region of the world. His primary goals included examining the region, conducting scientific investigations, identifying new species, and exploring the geological relationship between Australia and Antarctica. Exploration of Macquarie Island, where a scientific facility and wireless relay station were built, was also a goal. This was the first time a radio was used on the Antarctic continent, and it was a major scientific accomplishment at the time. The historic property involves 4 huts as well as other historical relics. The main hut combined 2 expedition shelters into one. It held 18 men, providing a sleeping, dining, laundry, and darkroom area. A nearby workshop housed wireless equipment, a generator, and other necessities, while skylights offered natural light. On 3 sides, a deck enclosed the hut that housed the sled dogs. The magnetograph hut, which was used to measure the fluctuations in the South Magnetic Pole. The absolute magnetic hut, which was used to obtain magnetic field data from the Earth. The last hut was the Astronomical Observatory, which housed devices that took star sightings and determined Cape Denison's exact coordinates. There was a memorial cross that was placed in November 1913 in remembrance of the 2 members who died during the expedition while sledding. Number 7. The Sydney Opera House, Sydney. The Sydney Opera House is a multi-venue performing arts centre that is widely recognised as one of the world's famous and distinctive 20th-century architectural structures. Eugene Goossens, director of the Conservatorium of Music, advocated for a suitable location for huge theater events in the late 1940s, because the usual site for plays was deemed insufficient. Eugene was successful in winning the support of the New South Wales Premier, who requested plans for a dedicated opera house. In 1955, an international design competition was established. The specifications called for a large hall, sitting 3,000 people, and a small hall, sitting 1,200 people, both of which would be intended for multiple purposes. A Danish architect, John Utzon, was the winner, receiving £5,000. The Fort Macquarie tram depot, which stood on the site at the time of these drawings, was dismantled in 1958, and work started in March of 1959. The facility has a modern expressionist design, with a series of colossal precast concrete panels comprising the structure's roofs, each established by sections of 246-foot sphere. It is supported by 588 concrete piers that are 82 feet below sea level. The highest point of the roof is 220 feet above sea level, which is the same as the height of a 22-story building. The roof is composed of 2,194 precast concrete panels, weighing up to 30,000 pounds apiece. The shells appear uniformly white from a distance, but they actually have a delicate chevron pattern made up of 1,056,006 tiles in glossy white and matte cream. Number 8. Uluru Kakachuta, Ulara. Uluru, commonly known as Ayers Rock, is a massive sandstone formation that is in central Australia. This land is holy to the local Aboriginal people, known as Angu. The area surrounding the formation is rich in springs, waterholes, rock caves, and ancient artwork. The sandstone structure is 1,142 feet tall and rises 2,831 feet above sea level, with the majority of the bulk below the surface, and has a total perimeter of 5.8 miles. Uluru is known for changing color multiple times of the day and during the year, particularly during sunrise and sunset. The reddish color of the rock is caused by iron oxide in the sandstone. Uluru is an inselberg, meaning island mountain, and is a known isolated residual hill in a hot, dry region that rises abruptly from and is surrounded by wide and flat erosion lowlands. It is renowned for its consistent lack of connecting and diving at bedding surfaces, resulting in the lack of formation of scree slopes and soil. These features allowed it to survive when the nearby rocks crumbled. Historically, 46 species of native animals have been found throughout the park. The flora of the park contains a considerable proportion of plants found in Central Australia, several of which are to be considered rare and limited. Uluru is one of Australia's most famous natural monuments and has been a popular tourist destination since the late 1930s. Number 9. Crocosaurus Cove, Darwin. Crocosaurus is home to some of Australia's largest saltwater crocodiles, ranging in age from 3 months to 80 years old. Bert, a Crocodile Dundee star, is one of the senior inhabitants. There's also a Crocosaurus couple named William and Kate that live there. This highlights over 70 different reptile species, as well as daily reptile shows where you can get up close and personal with a variety of slithery creatures such as a baby crocodile. You can safely swim with juvenile crocodiles in a swimming pool with a clear tank wall that separates you from the creatures. At Crocosaurus Cove, Australia's only crocodile dive, you may come face to face with the largest reptile in this facility. The Perspex cage, nicknamed the Cage of Death, is a 15-minute encounter. It is first suspended above a swimming pool, inhabited by 16-foot saltwater crocodiles, and then lowered down into the water, providing a 360-degree view of what's lingering below. Handlers feed the reptiles on a regular basis to stimulate movement and ensure you have a memorable experience. Photographers are also present, inside and out, to capture this once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. Number 10. Number 10. The Great Barrier Reef, Queensland. With over 2,900 distinct reefs and 900 islands, the Great Barrier Reef is the world's biggest coral reef system. The reef is so large that it can be seen from outer space and is the world's largest single structure created by living creatures. This structure is made up of and formed by billions of small organisms, supporting a diverse range of life. Eastern Australia had experienced a tectonic uplift, which caused the drainage divide in Queensland to shift, starting the formation of coral reefs. During this time, Queensland also had volcanic eruptions that resulted in central and shield volcanoes, along with basalt flows. It wasn't until 25 million years ago that the coral reefs began to flourish in the Coral Sea Basin. The Great Barrier Reef has been home to 30 different species of cetaceans, including the dwarf minke whale, Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin, and humpback whale. Many fish species, sea snakes, sea turtles, sharks, and even stingrays have been seen residing within the reefs. Hundreds of birds visit or nest on the reef's islands, with the majority of the nesting sites being on the northern and southern regions. The reef is a popular destination for scuba divers due to its immense variety, warm clear waters, and accessibility from tourists' boats. There are numerous boat tours and cruises available, ranging from single-day trips to extended adventures. Snorkeling and diving are by far the most popular tourist attractions. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Australia's best traveling destinations. Remember, the adventure doesn't end here. Let me know in the comments below which destination was the most fascinating. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.